We are
Live?
we are live.
Okay, welcome to August 19th, meeting of the Planning Commission. We'll start with roll call.
Commissioner Pevsner,
Here.
Vice Chair Dennison,
Present.
Commissioners Dallas,
Here.
Hutt,
Here.
and Spears.
Absent. Very good. All right. Let's go over to the approval of the agenda.
I move approval of the agenda as presented.
Second.
First, seconded. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No opposed. Moving on. Approval of the limits of August 5th. Anybody have any
Oh, I have a
changes? Okay, corrections? Go ahead.
Line 182, says Commissioner Dallas suggested pre-approved plans that can be available for purchase. I think I was more talking about available products that are out there than, housing products that they just buy.
Great.
Okay, is that better? Okay, thanks.
Move we accept the minutes as edited.
Second.
Seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Good. We're moving right along. We don't have a council liaison, so I guess we'll move on to the community input. This is the time when anybody in the crowd can come up and speak before the planning commission on an item that is not on the agenda. Only not on the agenda, please. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, if I take off my mask while I'm speaking?
Sounds good to me.
Is
Go
that
ahead,
okay?
yeah. State your name and
Shirley Moore, I'm a resident of Sierra Madre. And you'll understand why I don't give you my address at this point. In the wee hours of last Friday morning, as closely as I can calculate based on the last time it was seen by my mail carrier, my mailbox with mail in it was stolen. No other mailbox was tampered with either in my bank of boxes or anywhere else on the street, indicating that my specific mailbox was targeted. I appear before you tonight to point a finger in the direction of those who I strongly suspect perpetrated this crime, some small-minded, petty, but dangerous supporters of the monastery overdevelopment project. I am also now seriously questioning how a dead and malodorous squirrel ended up adjacent to my back porch on Tuesday. She could have fallen. They do that sometimes, but I cannot help but wonder. The monastery got my address from the glossy marketing mailers they sent out citywide, which I returned with my comments in bright blue or red Sharpie, opposing their utterly intrusive and wholly inappropriate development proposal. I didn't black out my address because I felt I had nothing to fear from speaking my piece. I was sadly mistaken in that regard. I won't be silenced by acts of domestic terrorism. I will continue to exercise my right to free speech despite these personal attempts at intimidation. We saw the same kind of vile behavior indulged in during the campaign to pass Measure V, a ballot measure to limit downtown development. Dead animals on porches, mailbox being blown up, personal property vandalized, horrifyingly false character assassinations published on the Downtown Dirt website, email harassment, and even death threats. I would like to remind the perpetrators of this crime that stealing a mailbox is a federal offense, and I have reported it both to Sierra Madre PD and the postal inspector. If the perpetrators, want to have another go at it, I advise them to smile for the cameras and do bring a crowbar, since all of the mailboxes in my bank are now set in concrete. As planning commissioners who will soon weigh in heavily on the monastery project, you need to be fully aware of who the monastery principals are and their supporters, and of what they are capable. Money is a very powerful motivator, even for a so-called Christian organization, and I expect they will do anything to ensure that their greed is satisfied, from terrorizing individual residents to holding the entire community hostage to their demands. I am asking you in advance to please keep the community's well-being and best interests in mind before approving a project which in no way adheres to our current general plan parameters and building zoning ordinances. In my opinion, this project has no merit. I hope that you as representatives of this community will concur and deny this project life, since our city council members appear to already have been swayed to the dark side. Thank you.
All right.
Yes.
And Ms. Moore, if I can ask you to, if you haven't done so already, fill out a speaker card. Yes, at the back of the room. There's a speaker.
Yeah, the
and then-
speaker cards in the back, that would be helpful, so for, not just for this, but also for the projects. If you want to ask a question, then you can bring them up and we can have the questions in writing as well. Oh, that's fine, okay, it's on the record.
If I can still get a speaker card signature, and then we'll just hand it to Jen, who is our deputy city clerk.
Okay.
It's just helpful for the record if you wouldn't mind.
That's fine. Anybody else want to speak on anything that's not on the agenda this evening? Very good. Let's move on to the design review permit, 557 Acacia. And
We have a PowerPoint presentation this evening
terrific.
for the first project, and Joshua Wolf, our associate planner, will be delivering that PowerPoint presentation.
Great, thanks.
Good evening, Commissioners. Tonight, the Commission will be reviewing Design Review Permit 2101, project located at 557 Acacia Street. It is currently, has a land use designation of low-density residential and a zoning of one-family residential. Lot size is 18,325 square feet. And as you can see, it's situated in an somewhat interior corner on Acacia Street, situated between somewhere around Val Vista Street and just behind Camilla Road. The applicant is requesting to fully renovate the exterior and expand the second floor of a single-family home. The total proposed gross floor area would be 4,348 square feet. And pursuant to Sierra Madre Municipal Code sections 1720.027B and C for design review permit, which is for second-story additions and additions exceeding 3,500 square feet, approval of a design review permit is required. The project is also exempt under CEQA Categorical Exemption Class 3. Here's an aerial image of the property. This was taken roughly February of 2021 and it's provided by LA County. And here you can see this is where Acacia Street is, front of the property, and it's got kind of like a five-sided property line here. We have images at the northeast side is on the top left of the slide here. This is the side of the building. At the front we have here, as seen from Acacia Street, you can see low-profile shed roofs. On the lower left of the slide, we have the rear elevation picture. And on the lower right of the slide, we have the southwest side. This is where the front porch is. And to summarize the project data, the lot size at 18,325 is not changing. Lot coverage is increasing by a small percentage, from 12.2% to 14.3%. Building height is slightly changing and increasing by 1 foot from 24 feet to 25 feet. Gross floor area is increasing from 3,093 square feet to 4,348 square feet. The front yard setback, they are enclosing the front yard, the front porch, I'm sorry. It is remaining as is. Mostly unchanged, but still at a 25-foot setback from the front. Side setbacks cumulatively currently are at 38 feet 11 inches, proposed to be at 32 feet 11 inches. The east side yard setback currently at 24 feet 10, remaining unchanged. The west side yard setback at 1411, proposed to be at 8 feet 1 inch. The rear yard setback, as you can see, as you have seen from the aerial image, is quite large at about 104 square feet, largely unchanged. And the parking currently exists at 3 covered spaces. Being proposed is at 3 covered spaces. All of these development standards are met per the R1 development standards requirements. Here's a vicinity map and neighborhood analysis of the property. The neighborhood analysis conducted shows that the proposed project is within the top 1/3 of properties by building size, and that it is both above the median and average building size of those properties in the top 1/3. However, it is not the largest building, nor does it occupy a land area greater than any other property. And there's, as you can see here, there are 4 other properties which currently exist at larger building sizes than the proposed project would. So here we have an existing site plan on the top left of the slide, and on the bottom right we have the proposed site plan. The proposed site plan does not involve alteration to the landscaping other than for minor rehabilitation at the front yard in the southerly portion. The existing footprint will be expanded towards the easterly portion line, property line, as well as the front property line as part of the additions, including the enclosure of the front porch. Additions of a new front porch and expansion of the family room and storage area. Minor alteration of the footprint towards the westerly property line will occur as part of the articulation design of the exterior remodel. And as I had mentioned in my summary prior to this slide, there's no change to the setback on this side. That's because there is a tapering effect of the property line as it moves away from the building. Although there are expansions of that footprint towards that property line, it does not change the setback. And here's just an enlarged version of that site plan that I showed on the bottom right of the previous slide. The setback from the westerly property line meets the zoning code requirements. The average lot width calculation and analysis has been provided on sheet A1.02 of attachment D, which results with an average lot width of 79.5 feet. Zoning code would require a minimum side yard setback of 10% of the average of the lot width, or approximately 8 feet. The smallest setback from the westerly property line is provided at 8 feet and 1 inch. The existing front setback is 25 feet, and the proposed project involves the enclosure of the new front porch, which is currently set back at 25 feet. A portion of the proposed new front porch will encroach into the front yard setback by 5 feet, as permitted by Chapter 17.48, permitted up to 6 feet. The east side yard setback and the rear setbacks will exceed the requirement. Will exceed the requirement, having setback distances greater than the minimum that is required. And by exceed, I don't mean to result by variance. That it is a greater setback than would be required. The project proposes the full demolition of the first floor, as you can see on the left part of the slide, to accommodate the renovation and remodel. The existing entrance and porch will be enclosed to accommodate the dining room and living room. A new entrance is proposed to face this street. So here on the floor plan, you'll see that this is the front porch area entering into the grand foyer. To the right of that, or to the north of that, is where the garage is, living room, new dining room, expanded kitchen, family room, and storage areas on this floor. Additionally, the double car opening for the garage will be double framed, such that the one car opening would appear as a recessed or part of that building. The proposal for the second story involves remodeling of nearly all area. Expansion primarily projects towards the front and to a lesser degree towards the east and west sides. The layout of the floor plan is completely changed. The master bedroom suite is expanded for a walk-in closet and reoriented bathroom, so that would be this top left portion as seen on the slide. The bedrooms at the west end of the building will be separated by a Jack and Jill style bathroom, as you can see at the bottom portion of the proposed second floor on this slide. A bedroom is relocated at the easterly side of the building, equipped with a full bathroom, as you can see right here on the slide. A laundry room is added near the top of the landing of the staircase, right here in the interior. The master bedroom and bedroom located at the westerly portion of the buildings will have added balconies detailed with metalwork. These balconies are primarily decorative, extending beyond the wall planes of both the first and second stories, and designed in such a way to be occupied without solid cover for the ground floors below. And those balconies would be these guys right here projecting from that western base of the building. So here and here. The bedroom located at the southwesterly portion of the building. This is the bottom right of the proposed floor plan on slide. On the new floor plan, we'll have a balcony with a stained wood trellis structure to be lightly decorated in vegetation. So that would be this bedroom with the open balcony trellis structure at this end. The area of the staircase will be open to below, limited by a dropped ceiling to 16 feet, as measured from the finished floor to the ceiling. Articulation is primarily accomplished through the expansion of walls on the front and eastern sides of the buildings, and to a lesser extent by the use of double framing and decorative windows, or for decorative windows on the rear and western elevations. Or more specifically, the double framing occurs here on the bottom portion of that slide of the floor plan, and here. The proposed roof plan incorporates several ridged roofs with gable ends. A large shed roof structure sloped toward the front will be used to cover roughly 1/4 of the area of the second floor, and that would be this portion that I'm highlighting here. Sheds towards the front of the property. The smaller shed roof structures are used are used to cover the projections of the first floor at the west side of the building. Those would be these smaller ones shed towards the western side. 3 vertical pipe chases will be capped by a small pyramidal roof. Those would be right here, and right here. Roof eaves project 2 feet beyond the building face throughout. I know it's a little bit difficult to see on the projector, but the wall line is represented by a lightly dashed line within that roof plane. The building sections cutting through the entrance foyer reveal that the floor to ceiling height is limited at a maximum of 16 feet. Although it is difficult to see, it is dimensioned out here to be 16 feet, both in this area and in this area. That's done through a dropped ceiling on the second floor volume, right here and right here. Here's some 3D rendering photo montages of the proposed exterior renovations. As you can see, it is a Spanish Mediterranean style. As mentioned before, that balcony with the stained wood trellis cover would be decorated in vegetation. You can see the 3-car garage over to the right slightly. You can move over to the next photo montage slide and see what it would look like from the north end of Acacia. And here, direct on to the building, we can see the 3-car garage, the entrance, and the other portions of the building. On the top of this slide, you can see the east colored elevation. And to the bottom, we can see the south or front facade elevation. On the top of this slide, we can see the west elevation. This would be looking north from the south end of Acacia. And on the bottom of the slide, we see the north elevation. This would be looking from the rear yard towards the building. And as the projected angle plane demonstrates, the walls and top plate of the second floor walls is below the angle plane. However, a vertical projecting vent and its roof cap project above the angle plane. The zoning code requirement for angle plane exempts chimneys when necessary to meet code. encroachments above the angle plane may be approved by the application of this design review permit. And on slide, we can see that represented, the angle plane represented by a red line here, 10 feet above the grade at property line, and then a 45-degree plane in. Same thing on this elevation. Here are some additional perspective renderings. Moving on to materials, colors, and references. Beginning with the top left sample and moving right. We have here, all exterior exposed wood eaves and trellis structure will be a stained, darkened natural wood color. Terracotta roofing of a custom blend, most similar to Madera blend, to be used on all roof planes and caps. Exterior lighting fixtures to be installed as depicted or similar. Fireplace vent extrusion from the wall to be installed and or as depicted or similar. Moving on to the stucco texture and color. All exterior walls to be clad in smooth steel troweled stucco with a Santa Barbara finish in a Viejo color as depicted or similar. A rough sample of what that texture would look like is immediately to the right of that color sample. And to the right of that, we have the color for the aluminum cladding to be used for the windows and door frames in a color similar to the wood stain. Windows will additionally have a cast concrete sill. And finally, this piece here is the kitchen hood exterior wall termination for the hood. The protrusion is flush with the exterior wall finish. And moving on, we do have a plant palette, but a formal landscape plan is not required. The applicant has expressed, however, the desire to use the depicted vegetation and garden features or similar. And as part of approving a design review permit, the following findings were made: that the proposed project remains single-family in use, meets all of the development requirements in accordance with the R1 one-family residential zone. Second, there is no change in the intensity of the use. No additional bedrooms are proposed, and the proposed project maintains a 3-car parking garage with additional open on-site parking. Compatibility of height, bulk, scale, mass, and siding is demonstrated where the project maintains a majority of the existing footprint, expanding to areas which meet development standards, where the neighborhood analysis shows that it is not setting precedent in terms of floor area size, and where the plans show careful implementation of articulation of each building elevation. Lastly, or not lastly, but next, that architectural design is found to be compatible with the neighborhood and Foothill Village setting, where architectural details characteristic of a Spanish Mediterranean style can be found reflective of styles found dotted throughout Sierra Madre. Next, that the property is situated with a steeply rising hill at the rear yard, which can serve as a natural means of privacy for both the occupant and adjacent neighbors. Balconies placed facing the front and the rear will not unreasonably impact the privacy of neighbors. A coherent project-wide design is demonstrated by the proposed elevations and rendering, where it is apparent details characteristic of a Spanish Mediterranean style have been used consistently on each elevation. The proposed project is a custom design intended to fully renovate the exterior of the existing house, utilizing the existing footprint and low-grade landform. The siding of the project is primarily maintained in its current position, only extended toward the front and east property lines, respecting and preserving privacy and views for neighbors and occupants. Finally, that high-quality materials intended specifically to characterize a Spanish Mediterranean architectural style are used throughout the building, which will also be required to meet high-efficiency energy requirements. Tonight, the Planning Commission may approve the request for design review permit 2101 pursuant to Planning Commission Resolution 21-11. They may approve this application with modifications. They may deny the request, identifying findings that the Planning Commission cannot make and the basis for rejecting those findings. Or they may continue the subject project and provide direction to the applicant and staff. Staff is recommending that the Planning Commission approve Design Review Permit 2101, subject to the conditions of approval in Planning Commission Resolution 21-11. And before I conclude my presentation, I would just like to point out that staff has received documentation of support of the project by 14 residents within the immediate area. And that would be all.
Very good. Thank you, Josh. Any questions for Josh?
Go ahead.
This got referred up to us from, this should have been a ministerial review, is that right?
That's correct.
And it got referred up to us?
That is correct.
I have a question about the floor area calculations of the part with the 16-foot high ceilings. That's counted as a one-time floor area, right? Because it's 16 feet.
Right. If I recall correctly, the code only counts it as double the floor area if it is beyond 16 feet floor to ceiling.
But that 16 feet is achieved through a drop ceiling from a roof height that could accommodate more. I mean, if you didn't have that drop ceiling and you had a sort of a normal ceiling, you'd have 17 feet, say, and then we'd count it as 2 times.
That would be correct.
And then that portion would push them over the FAR.
Yes, a small portion by which, yes.
Okay. And then, for parking now, we're all going on square footage and not bedrooms, right? So it seems to me that on the first floor plate, where there's, the first floor plan, there's a storage area with a closet. I mean, isn't that a bedroom? I mean, I don't think it makes any difference if we have a 4 versus 5 bedroom, because we don't do parking based on bedrooms anymore. But it just seems to me sort of not standard, let's say, to have a storage area with a closet that looks really much like a bedroom. And it just, you know, when bedrooms are labeled storage or den or things instead of just bedrooms, it just sort of bugs me. So I guess that's not a question, sorry. But it doesn't affect I guess the fundamental question here is, the parking is 3 per, no matter if that's a bedroom or not, right?
I don't recall the old parking requirements, but I believe our maximum required was still 3.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Any other questions for Josh? No. Is the applicant or the architect or anybody here that wants to speak on behalf of the project? It's okay.
Just wanted to point out that,
Come up, just come at the front, yeah, that's fine.
I believe that regarding the stair, by the way, Josh, thank you, you did an amazing job representing the project. I just wanted to mention that the stair hall, even if it were counted twice, would not put the project over the FAR. There's a little bit of a cushion because in 2021, the FAR calculation, I believe, increased slightly.
That's fine, we'll answer your question if you identify yourself, please.
Oh, sorry. Alon Friedman, I'm the architect.
Okay, thank you. All right, that's it? Okay, well, short and sweet. Bring it back to the commission. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot that we have so few people, I apologize. Yes, we'll bring this open for public comment, thank you. Is anybody here that wants to speak on this that's in the audience? Okay, seeing no one, we'll bring it back. Now, commission, anybody wants to start with, go ahead. Sounds like you have the most concerns.
I think, first I'd like to make a request of staff and all future applicants, and I made this at the last hearing. It would be really great if on the floor plans, we could show the existing footprint and the new footprint superimposed so you can see how they change. Because when you go to the site to look, and I guess we breezed through the disclosures, but I went to both sites, didn't talk to anybody though. It's really helpful to see, oh, it sticks out a little more here, because then you can see where the wall is now. And so I think it's really helpful for review of the project, and it's not like story poles that cost any extra money. So I really wish we could get that in all future applications. I think that the current house has got this mega 70s vibe going. It looks tired and dated. This is a very nice upgrade, and I think that the overall design looks good. I'm a little concerned that there's some parts of it that sort of maximize the appearance of bulk and massing. And, you know, we can debate about the 16 feet or things like that, or the porch that sticks out, but then it has a 2-story addition, which doesn't really add to the program because it's open to below. But those are things that have concern to me. And I think as far as the floor area goes and the size, you know, you've got this sort of portion of the back that comes up that's not really part of the building pad. So when you look at the floor area, it's a little deceiving, I think. On the other hand, the neighborhood is primarily large houses. So I don't think this is going to stick out like, oh my God, look how big that is. It's going to fit in size-wise. But I do have concerns about the front, and where you've got, like I said, this sort of 70s shed look that tapers back, and now you're going to have elements that come on the second story and stick front. So I guess that's my initial thoughts and concerns, and I'm happy to hear from other commissioners and see what they think and where we go with it.
Tom?
Sure. I visited both sites, spoke to nobody as well. I wholeheartedly concur that an upgrade to that late 70s style house is something that we're going to see across that entire neighborhood, and welcome it. I think it's time for those upgrades. I think that it definitely wasn't the lightest on bulk and massing, but with that in mind, it felt like there was some articulation as trade-off for that, and I appreciated that because it's a bulky project, but it's like 20,000 feet. It's in this corner where the hill is so high behind it that I don't think, I was a little worried about would there be too much exposure to the neighbor to the west, but I mean, every house is built such a step right through there that I got over that quickly. And the balconies that I thought would look really good with that style, smartly 2 of them were to the back. You're not going to affect anybody but your swimmers, right? And so I thought that was a smart design. And adding the articulation to me was what really helped me get past kind of the bulky look. So I think I can get behind the project personally.
Becky?
Okay, I agree with what's been said so far for the most part. I'm having a problem with the entrance tower. So much of the house is just so lovely Spanish revival. But the entrance tower, suddenly, it's like a record jar, scratch on the record. It suddenly, you know, sort of screams McMansion. It's like really tall and in your face. And the volume's really not working either inside and out to any effective use. It seems like if you could back the tower, face the tower up, back towards the entrance door, you'd still get a lot of coverage. That get back like 6 feet or something. You'd see the beautiful doors you're proposing that much better. And then bring it down. You could even, you know, maybe do a little round thing that's embedded in the building. And it would add, that'd be very Spanish revival. You know, just anything to sort of bring it down. And in the process of doing that, you could lower maybe the plate line in the stair hall, and behind the tower do, you know, a vaulted beam ceiling or something. You're just missing opportunities to complete the story, as far as I can tell. But what's been proposed so far is very nice. And if, you know, I had to, I could grudgingly go along with even that tower, but I think there's an opportunity to really make it that much better. And so.
Well, my opinion is that these are large lots in the area, and this is a big improvement on the house. I think some of the design things are probably client-oriented, so I'm not really, and I do like the articulation. I think it was tastefully done. I think I think I give them kudos for getting rid of the first story, because they're gonna have to do a lot of expensive foundation work. So I think structurally, it's gonna be a sound project, so I don't have any problem with the findings. The other design issues, I'm not particularly married to changing, so I think I could support the project as is. If the other commissioners wanna make some suggestions and the client wants to make some modifications and bring it back, that's fine with me, but I could support it the way it is. Anybody wanna, or you wanna come up and address some of the concerns about the tower, since you're the designer?
I think that, just in the evolution of the project, I mean, I think, at some point, the client has a schedule and their sort of program, and so I think, I think at some point we just had to sort of really say, this is, responding to their needs and sort of move ahead with it. So, like anything, I mean, I appreciate the feedback. There could probably be, adjustments, but I think at this point, I think it's, I'm proud of the project. A lot went into it. It's actually been quite a challenge with that, getting that amount of project and all the different dynamics that go along with it. So, yeah, I think, appreciate the feedback. Good thought, definitely good thoughts. But I think, it's sort of like a puzzle. We've sort of got it working now, a machine, and sort of if we sort of start taking parts and sort of changing them, I think it might kind of, sort of further kind of extend the timeline for the project, which I know is not necessarily the concern here, but, out of respect for the client and their kind of, funds and things come into play at some point. That was part of the, sort of the need,
If I could ask you a question on, to me, I think that, there's this question about the second story massing coming frontwards, and I think Peggy had a lot of good ideas, but the part to me that's really the most problematic is the two-story tower element on the front, because that's coming into the setback. And, I'm totally cognizant of your desire to get the project moving, and I think there's, overall, it's clear that the commission thinks that the bulk of the project is very good, and it's a huge improvement. It seems like to me it would be pretty easy to change that tower from a two-story to a one-story configuration, and I would be fine with approving tonight with a condition of approval that you take that one little tweak back to staff and you don't have to come back to us. And that way you could keep on program, but I think it would address my main concern, and then I would be happy to support the project. And if that's something that you guys can get on board with, I'd be happy to support the project as well. Because I think we're, really close.
Yeah. I mean, I think we could probably, if that moves the project forward, then I think we could look at that and see about.
Does that work with you?
Yeah, I think, yes,
Yeah.
some sort of reduction
Yeah.
in mass to that.
I mean, just a note, sort of what the sort of original genesis of the two-story was, just to sort of put it out there, is that, one of the challenges of this project is that if you look at the current elevation, it's so flat with the garages and the, porch and the front edge, it's basically a box. And so one of the things one of the goals was to try to create some separation between the garages and, the mass of the house. And I think, part of it was when we looked at one-story options, that it kind of came across as being a little bit kind of not strong enough. And maybe that means it's a 1.5 story, I don't know, but, that's sort of what the idea was there, that to try to kind of say this is the garage wing, it's almost, the narrative is like it's a separate kind of wing, and, then there was the house. But, it's only so much we could do there. But I think the client's open to it, so,
Okay.
yeah.
I appreciate that, and I think the idea of moving the entrance to the front is, I mean, that alone makes the house a lot better. I mean, so I totally hear what you're saying, and to echo what everyone else has said, the use of balconies and articulation to minimize the flat bulk, I think is very well done. So I don't want to come off as sounding too negative, because there's this one part I'd like to tweak, because overall I think it's a very good project.
Okay.
Okay, done, all right. Okay, so then I have a motion with the modification.
Can I give a shot at
Yeah.
this? I propose to approve, I have to say the
Design review.
design review permit 21-01 DRP 2101, that's all, it's the same thing.
Yep.
Okay, and with the condition of reducing the mass of the entry by pushing it back a little and bringing it down a little, 1.5 stories maybe even would be fine, but down and back a little.
Okay.
I didn't hear the back part. I didn't think we were talking about the back so much as the height.
Well, yeah, it doesn't have to go back far, but it doesn't have to come out as far as it does by a long shot. And so, you disagree with the back?
I don't, you're the architect, so you know better. To me,
I can
it's
go with that, okay.
reduce the sort of in-your-face massing of it. If
Yeah.
that's back and down, or just down, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I would be fine with crafting the conditions sort of more generally to staff, that they reduce the overall massing effect of the entryway, a sort of tower arrangement.
Okay.
And some suggestions are down and back, and you guys can figure out the best way to do that.
I'll second that.
Okay,
Whatever that was.
we have a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And opposed? No one left. Very good. It passes. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. All right. Very good. Okay. Let me grab some water here. Great. That brings us to the second project, the modification to design review permit, 1908, and discretionary demolition permit for 287 East Montecito Avenue. And we have another presentation from Josh.
We have another PowerPoint presentation that is queued up on the screen, and it'll be delivered by Joshua Wolf, Associate Planner.
Good evening again, Commissioners. Tonight, our second presentation will be for the modification to design review permit 1908, discretionary demolition permit 1905 at 287 East Montecito Avenue. Project location is at the terminus of East Montecito, just before it hits Mountain Trail Avenue. It is residential low density with a one-family residential zone and a lot size of 17,205 square feet. The applicant is requesting to modify the approved application, now proposing to construct a single-family addition of 571 square feet by partial enclosure of the side-facing porch and by expansion of the ground floor towards the rear of a single-family residence. The total proposed gross floor area would be 3,307 square feet. The prior approval had a design review permit pursuant to section 1720.027B and C. For the prior approval was additions of the second floor, as well as additions beyond 3,500 square feet. This modification today would not require approvals of design review permits because it is neither having a second floor addition nor having additions beyond 3,500 square feet of gross floor area. This modification is also subject to discretionary demolition permit, in that the prior approval included discretionary demolition permit required by section 1760.056 because of the proposed alterations to the exterior of a structure eligible for listing as a landmark and eligible as a full contributor to a National Register Historic District. We also have quite a lot of language on modifications that I'll spare you the details of tonight. And lastly, the project is exempt by SEQA requirements as a categorical exemption class 3. Here's an aerial imagery of the property site. North on this slide would be at the right of the slide. And as you can see, Montecito terminates right here, this part of the slide here. The front of the property is on the left-hand side of the slide, and the rear is on the right. The structure is sited very centrally with a one-car garage on the west side of the property. Here are some panorama views. These were provided by the prior application. Your street view facing the front of the property on the top of the slide. And on the bottom of the slide is a panorama view of the north elevation facing the rear of the building. You can also see some additional site photographs. These are also photographs provided by the prior application by reference. This is what exists today anyway. We have the south elevation, which is the front, and as you can see, all the characteristics of a Dutch colonial style architecture can be seen at this elevation. At the north elevation, we can see the rear of the structure. Some of the Dutch colonial elements continue on this side. Moving on to the east elevation photo, we can see portions of the front porch. This is the part facing the side with a concrete staircase. On the west elevation, we have more of the plain side here. And the garage depicted on the bottom of the slide is a single car garage with a parapet roof. This is to be demolished and replaced. So as mentioned earlier, this is a overall is a reduction in scope of work, but we'll go over the summary here. Lot size is not changing. Lot coverage would be changing from 10.6% to 14.3%. Building height remains the same. Gross floor area is increasing from a total of 2726 square feet. This is a calculation of 2503 is existing plus 223 for the garage. Although I have noted that 2155 square feet is what the assessor lists as habitable floor area. The proposed would be 2628. I'm sorry, am I reading that right? 2826 square feet of a residence plus 481 square foot garage. There is a 290 square foot front porch, which is exempt from the floor area calculation because it faces the front of the property, for a total of 3,307 square feet. Front, sides, and rear, just front side setbacks are not changing by this. This is extension of existing setbacks towards the rear. I list that the rear setback, that's incorrectly listed, but is demonstrated by the one-car garage. That is being relocated, we'll see on the site plan in a moment. By the parking, we're changing from a one-car garage to be demolished to a two-car garage at 481 square feet, where the requirement is for 2 spaces in a dwelling that is between 1,000 and 3,500 square feet. Here on the top left of this slide, we can see the prior project approval site plan. You can see that there is a lot of landscaping here. The modifications do propose a reduced scope of work such that the landscaping is no longer a part of the project. And here we have the enlarged site plan. Modified from the prior submittal, the expansion of the residence still occurs towards the rear of the property. The detached garage is located in the same general vicinity, but it is reduced in size and is located closer to the property line as permitted at 3 feet to maximize the amount of open space in the rear yard. Here we have on the left hand of the slide is the first floor existing plan, and to the right of that is the first floor proposed plan. We can see expansions toward the rear with enclosures of the portion of the porch facing the east. The revised plan proposes the expansion of the first floor toward the rear of the property, as well as partial enclosure of the porch facing the east side, entirely aligned to the existing building setback. The revised plan also proposes a remodel of the interior, slightly altering the program, swapping the locations of the kitchen and the bathroom, further expanding the area of the bathroom for a full bathroom. The addition and porch enclosure will expand the areas of the dining room and living room. The steps currently located at the side-facing porch that lead up to the porch from grade will be demolished and repositioned at the rear open patio, as seen here on the top right of this slide. Second floor plan exists shown on the left of the slide and proposed on the right of the slide. The revised plan proposes only the remodel of the second floor plan. The second floor will be reprogrammed from 4-bedroom, 1.5 bathrooms, and a study to 3 bathrooms, 2 full bathrooms, and a study where one of the bedrooms is a full suite. The study will remain unchanged. New roof planes are visible from the second floor at the rear and sides of the building as part of the remodeling and expansion of the first floor. You can see those roof planes here on the extending from the rear of the property, of the building. The revised plan of the roof includes roof structures over the proposed additions on the first floor and a new skylight installed on the roof over the second floor, directly over the stairwell. It faces the rear of the property and it would not be visible from the street. Here on the top left of the slide, we see the section of the southerly portion of the building looking south. Additions are highlighted by a darkened wall section cut out. On the bottom right, we see another section, northerly portion of the building looking north, with additions highlighted here by a darkened wall section. On this slide on the top right, we see the eastern portion building looking east, again with additions highlighted by the darkened wall section. And on the easterly portion of the building looking east, we can see expansions not highlighted by a darkened wall, but instead projecting to the left of the building. Just a few more section elevations. On the top left, we see the western portion of the building looking west. Here there are additions and remodels highlighted by darkened wall sections. And again, the eastern portion of the building looking east. Here is a 3D rendering of the front facade. As you can see, colors and materials are staying the same as what was priorly approved. And you can also see that there is no major change to the character of the front facade. At the rear is where most of these changes are occurring. We can see here the additions occurring as extensions of the ground floor on the first floor, as well as new materials and slightly the garage to the right. So here are the building elevations. On the top portion of the slide, we can see the existing elevations with proposed elevations just below. To the left, we have the east elevation. Changes can be seen primarily through ground floor extension towards the right of the building. You can see demolition of and removal and replacement of the door, stairs, windows for windows in like proportion. And to the right, we see the northern elevation with many changes shown here on the proposed elevation. In the next slide, we have the west elevation on the left-hand side of the slide. Not much of this is changing other than a couple of windows for privacy for bathroom windows, and a new window on the second floor. And we can see a bit of that extension of the first floor here on the left of the building. The south elevation is the front facade elevation. This is primarily unchanged, except for it's not too visible as the extension towards the rear here, just behind the balcony. I'm sorry, the patio, second floor balcony, yeah. So in part for approving a modification to a discretionary demolition permit, we had found that the construction in 1908, the house is an intact example of a Dutch colonial revival architecture. The house is eligible for local listing as a historic designation for Criterion B, architectural. Proposed additions and renovations are consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation, specifically standards 9 and 10. Next, that the property will continue to be used as single-family residence and will retain its original two-story appearance. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mention that. These are the findings for design review. I did asterisk this because the modification would no longer require approval of a design review permit, but those findings were nonetheless made. So we further find that the Dutch colonial revival architectural style will be retained and is consistent on all elevations. The additions are in scale and architecturally significant with the original design. The additions comply with setback, height, and roofline requirements. The views of the house from adjacent properties will predominantly remain the same in terms of bulk and mass of a two-story house. Next, that the design exemplifies architecture that is thoughtful and that the additions maintain the Dutch colonial revival architectural style. The additions are integrated with the original design of the house, but do not replicate design details. The use of materials, new color scheme, new windows and doors unify the exterior appearance of the house, preserving the unique Dutch colonial revival style architecture. And next we have, for historic preservation, Department of Interior regulations for rehabilitation compliance. First, that the character defining features of the general massing and detailing of the structure will be maintained, including the Dutch gable roof and the eave detail, and original fenestration on the street-facing elevation. The project does not propose to add conjectural features or architectural elements of a different style. The house will retain its original two-story appearance from the street. New first-story additions not visible from the street-facing elevation. The rear facade additions will resemble the original massing and roof form evident in the portion of the rear elevation to be demolished. The additions to the north and east elevations are consistent with the architectural style of the house. The eastern half of the front elevation screen porch will be retained. Several of the original wood windows of the front entry door and windows flanking the front door will be preserved in place. The new windows align with the original fenestration and window design will be slightly differentiated in order to distinguish the new construction from the original house. Tonight, the Planning Commission may approve the request for modification to the design review permit and discretionary demolition permit pursuant to Planning Commission Resolution 21-14. They may approve the applications with modifications. They may deny the request, identifying the findings that the Planning Commission cannot make and the basis for rejecting those findings, or they may continue the subject project and provide direction to the applicant and staff. Tonight, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission approve modification to Design Review Permit 1908 and Discretionary Demolition Permit 1905, subject to the conditions of approval in Planning Commission Resolution 21-14. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Josh. Any questions for Josh? Go ahead.
I just have one procedural question. You said that a design review permit is no longer needed. So do we need to still approve the modification of the one that was existing approved? Or do we just do the modification to the discretionary demolition permit.
So procedurally speaking, I was following the language listed in our modifications section described in 1760.180. It's quite a long paragraph. I can cite that all for you right now if you'd like.
No, I just want the answer.
Okay.
Do we modify both, or do we modify just the demolition permit? I guess is really the question.
Basically, that you can add conditions, change conditions, modify conditions of the prior approval.
Okay. Thanks.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I have questions regarding, like, the deck, and should I ask you that, or the? Okay.
Why don't we start with staff?
Okay, on the south elevation, the proposed shows there's no vent in that little dormer above the door, and there's an existing vent there now. But there's some inconsistencies with these elevations, which makes me wonder if they just got tired of drawing. I mean, because it's not even on the existing, but it's like the pictures show it.
South elevation vents.
Oh, okay.
So
Right there,
there's a dormer.
the
Okay.
dormer.
Yeah. So there is a photo showing that there's an existing
Dormer, and
dormer
it has
here. It's just not shown on plan.
it-
There's also the pediment above the front porch that's not shown. It's not being added. It's just it wasn't shown on the existing elevation.
Okay, just want to make sure that dormer has vents in it, because it doesn't make sense. Otherwise, it kind of drives me nuts.
Let's take a look at the photo. So here, that's where that dormer is, right here on
Yes.
this south elevation.
There's got to be a reason for it,
Yeah.
so. And then the deck, the existing deck on the east side, second story. What, it's being held up by little, like, 2x4 rafters right now. And I don't know if it's actually usable, or what's the intention with the proposal on that deck? Are they gonna reframe it, or? And if so, how does that play historically, and? It's just a question.
So if reframing were to occur, we could look at another discretionary demolition process, or we can include it as part of this application. However, I'm not sure if that's part of the scope of this job, or if scope may be expanded, we can impose conditions about that.
Okay, because, yeah, I'm not sure either. Okay, and then one other, on the east elevations, there's an existing peak in the middle at the top that's missing on the proposed, but that's probably just another drawing error, or
So let's see, east elevation.
are we doing something different to the roof, or is it just, there's a peak, and then down below, there's no peak?
I would gander that's a drawing error, but I would defer the question to
Okay.
the applicant if they're here tonight.
And then one last question regarding the garage. The existing garage has a flat roof. The pre-approved other garage had a flat roof. Why does this one have a flat roof? I mean, the one that got approved previously had a flat roof because they had a deck up there.
That would be correct. The answer to why, I would defer again to the applicant or to the
Okay.
client if they're here tonight.
Okay.
I noticed that the arborist report wasn't updated. I assume that was because they've removed the changes to the landscaping, and those 3 protected trees are so far out that there just wasn't a reason.
Right, it's included in the staff report by reference, but to point that out and to answer your question, the garage is not even within the drip line of either protected tree.
Okay.
So only by reference is it included.
'Cause I don't think any of the trees that are listed there, except for those 3 protected ones, are left.
That would be correct.
Great. No other questions? Is the applicant or client in the, yes, if you'd like to come up and speak?
Thank you for the opportunity to address the Sierra Madre Planning Commission. I also want to thank Vincent Gonzalez and Josh Wolf for their assistance. I'm joined by my wife, Connie, our children, Jordan, Evan, and Avery. And we're also joined by our neighbor, Peggy Beauregard, very kind neighbor. Before I begin, I want to thank each and every one of you for your public service. I too have spent most of my life in service to others. Prior to coming to Sierra Madre, I was the United States Undersecretary for the Department of Transportation and also the Deputy Director of the Office of Management and Budget. And so I'm grateful for your public service. We moved to Sierra Madre about 8 weeks ago. We moved closer to be with my family and really to be close to my mom, who was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer early this year. I wanted to talk a little bit tonight about our petition and provide just some opening remarks before I turn it over to our architect, Greg Preston. A 100-year-old fixer-upper was really never on our list of criteria for a house we wanted to buy. I'll be honest, the first few days after we moved in, there was some serious buyer's remorse. There were dripping faucets, brown running water, wildlife running through the backyard, which was kind of nice. And there's only one place to shower in the entire house. A clawfoot bathtub with sides so high we have to help our kids get in and out of it. And most difficult of all for me, it is hot. And when I say it's hot, I mean it is extremely hot. It is in the high 80s and inside the house and even late into the night. In fact, we run air conditioner, but the attic is so poorly insulated that when we run the air conditioner, all we know is we're not being green and we're bleeding money when we do. But then we started meeting the neighbors and other residents around town, and they started sharing with us their memories of time spent in the house and giving us a slice of this Norman Rockwell life. Times when it was owned by others in previous decades, like Grandma Margaret, who owned it about 50 years ago. One of our neighbors has been in Sierra Madre pretty much his whole life, and he's a septuagenarian. And his childhood best friend grew up in our house, and he fondly recalls how his first experience watching a television, the first time his whole life, was in our living room. Across the way from him lives Peggy, who a week after moving in invited us over for pizza and drinks in her backyard. Already, our kids have found friends in the neighborhood, and all of them are creating new memories together in our little cul-de-sac. And perhaps one day we'll be telling stories decades from now about the fun times they had in and around the house. And as we settle in here in Sierra Madre, we hope this house not only serves us, but also members of the community. It's painfully obvious when you look at the pictures that this house has not received much care in the last few years and maybe over a decade. And we hope to bring this house up to date, make it energy efficient, make it a safe, comfortable, and green residence by today's standard, and help it realize its potential once again as a lovely and charming home. Our approach, as you can see here, is to preserve the charm of the neighborhood and the unique architectural style of Dutch colonial. And to that end, we're keeping most of the house unchanged, especially the front. With that, let me turn it over to Greg to see if you have any additional comments, and happy to answer any questions. Thank you for the time.
Oh.
Yes.
I want to thank you for buying it and loving it. I mean, it's a really wonderful when somebody takes an old house like that and embraces it. And yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Dallas.
Thank you.
So the drafting errors on the existing versus the proposed is because there was such a rush job that I never actually got into the house to actually do my own measurements. I had to go off of what was already there, build it up by photographs and memories, And then as I kept moving on through the design, it started to like form up, and I go, oh, the pitch is a little bit wrong, the roof line's a little bit high, but the heights, the dimensions, and everything are exactly as they are going to be on the proposed. So I apologize for that. Like, I noticed them myself. Was there anything else?
Oh, I was asking why the garage roof is flat.
No other reason than the other one was flat, and we're not putting the existing one's flat, the approved one was flat with a roof deck. I didn't see that there was gonna be anything to raise any alarms.
No,
Up
it's
on the pitch,
just a
we'll put pitch
curiosity.
on it.
Mostly they're pitched, and so.
Anyway, I didn't wanna make you guys go, oh, there's a pitch on there.
Oh, changing it, yeah. I'm thinking, yeah, nothing else? Okay, very good, thank you.
Sure.
Name,
Wait.
please?
Oh,
Oh, Gregory Preston? Essentially, I was trying to say nothing is going to be changed from the street view. Everything was going to be contained within the parameters of the whole thing and make it as to the design as possible while giving the owners what they requested.
thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone in the audience want to comment on this project or make a statement? Okay, very good, thank you. We'll bring it back to the commission. Thoughts from the commissioners? Peggy, you can go first. How's that?
Okay.
Since you're the,
Well, I think this is a really nice, simple design that makes the best of a charming old building without, changing it a whole lot. I mentioned those things earlier to make sure that they don't get addressed way late in the field when, it's a better solution maybe could have been done sooner. And so, yeah. Looks good to me.
would you like a pitched roof on the garage?
Well, I think, I wouldn't mind putting that as a condition of a possibility
Okay.
for them, but, yeah,
Maybe we can make it optional. Huh?
yeah.
Go ahead, John.
Well, kudos to the applicant for giving this fabulous house the love it deserves. I was fine with the prior project. I thought it was really good, and I think this one is as well. And I don't think we'll have any problem making the findings just as we could make the findings before. So I do think with regard to the garage, there's also a mention of perhaps strengthening some of the balconies. We should try to provide some guidance and latitude to the applicant and staff so we can approve this tonight. And when you get into old houses and you start rebuilding, you might find somewhat surprises. You don't have to come back to us again for those kind of minor things. So I would be fine if you wanted to change the garage roof to pitch roof. I'm fine with it staying as a flat roof. And I'm not really up on the whole issues of the supports for the balconies that you were talking about, but I think we should address those as well to make sure that if you do find out that you need to replace those, you can do it just at the staff level.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. I think that the project maximized everything it could the last time we saw it, and this is a lighter touch. There's nothing to say, I think. I have zero opinion on the flat roof versus pitched. I think we should definitely, as somebody who has a 100-plus-year-old house, and I've found some fun things when I've torn that apart, I think that we should definitely make sure that they have the latitude to fix that balcony as they start trying to add on to it. I would have taken the opportunity to get rid of that window that sticks out from I assume that's the kitchen, because somebody's going to hit it with a car. But other than that,
Oh, no, that's adorable.
I know it's adorable. I knew somebody was going to say that, but someone's going to hit it with a car.
Okay. Yeah, same. I was here on the original project, and again, it was good last time. It's good this time. I would like to just suggest when we approve it that we make those modifications or make those changes to allow them latitude all the way around on the supports and the garage.
Right. Hearing that, I will make a motion to approve modification to design review permit 19-08 and discretionary demolition permit 19-05 with staff level approval of any changes that need to be made to the balcony structure in the course of construction.
And ability to optionality on the.
And the optionality of pitched roof to comply with existing standards.
Okay,
I will second that.
very good. So we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. All right. Well, seeing how everybody's cleared out. Sometimes we make an opportunity for the public to speak on something that's not on the agenda, but since there's no one here to speak on anything else that's not on the agenda, we'll move on to Planning Commission reports.
Nothing for me.
Anybody have
Oh.
anything to report?
I want to add something Commissioner Hutt said earlier about the
Comparisons?
comparisons of the plans. That's, would really be really nice if the elevations were compared. Either the proposed elevation has a profile in dashed lines of where the existing is, or it was done like this project where they're one above the other, so we can get a visual comparison.
Sometimes it's difficult to get that from the architect. We'll get pushback on occasions. So we try to get as much detail as possible.
Okay.
I think even if we did an approximation of it, I think Planner Wolf has done a good job of doing that for us previously. My recommendation was the Pyramid House was a great example of that, where you did a great job of just superimposing some, I know it's not the Pyramid House, I can't remember the address.
It's the
where you-
Pyramid House.
It's the Pyramid House, where you did a great job of superimposing just in PowerPoint some lines over there that gave us examples of that, just to give us the broad strokes, I think would be really helpful. Even if we, I understand it's hard to get that dimensionalized from the architect, but broad strokes would probably be enough to get us over the line.
Great. Okay.
And then something else that I wanted to bring up, we had a broad amount of time that we were allowed to go see these houses. And it occurs to me that if I saw a stranger walking up in my house and I didn't know particularly who the planning commission was, that I might not terribly enjoy that, especially in this era of hearing about everybody walking up to people's houses with clipboards. And so I thought maybe if there was some way that we could get some kind of identification cards with lanyards that kind of identified who we were and said on the back the police department's number that they can call to validate that. 5 cards probably wouldn't be that hard with our terms on them for expirations.
That's a good idea.
Don't you guys have your magnetic badges still? I still have mine. Come on.
I don't think I do. I have a shirt though. Hamburger shirt. Shirt.
Apparently us newcomers don't have stuff like
Sticker
that.
on there. All right.
But that was just something that I thought might be a good idea for us, just because it occurs to me we're literally just walking up on people's property.
Great. Okay.
We can take care of that for you.
Planning and Community Preservation Department?
So our next meeting is scheduled for September 2nd. Currently, we do not have any projects to place on that agenda. I also would like to ask to consider if they would feel comfortable hosting individual study sessions that address key issues of the Meadows project to provide the public further opportunity for both input and general information about the draft EIR. Some of those topics could include water, traffic, fire, possibly noise, some of the larger topics that we generally receive comments from the public. And also, would the commission prefer presentations by simply staff addressing these, or do you want to bring in technical experts? What is your preference on hosting both the study sessions, individual study sessions, as well as who the presentation should be by staff or the experts who prepared the EIR?
And just to add one thing, the thinking here was, in part, we want to get accurate information out to the community. And we thought if the Planning Commission is willing, the Planning Commission meetings could be a vehicle for that. So if residents had questions or comments about the project, we would invite them to the Planning Commission meeting and they could provide their comments and questions. If they wanted to learn more about the project, they could learn more based thematically. So as Director Gonzalez said, if one of the meetings was dedicated to the city's water supply, because there are lots of issues concerning the water supply, or there are a lot of questions concerning the city's water supply, we would have a city staff member present, probably interim city manager Reynoso, because he's also our director of the water utility, to give a presentation about the water. If there was an issue about the fire, we'd have a staff member from probably the fire department come to talk about fire issues. So it'd be like thematic study sessions. It'd also be an opportunity for the city to inform both this commission and members of the public about the status of the project, and the city staff would be happy to receive questions from the planning commission regarding any questions they have about this project and the process.
And those would be open public meetings subject to the Brown Act?
Yeah, so there would be a presentation, there'd be questions from the planning commission, and then we take public comment.
But we wouldn't do, I mean, we could ask, the commissioners could ask questions, but we wouldn't do any deliberation, right? Because we're still getting
Correct.
information as we go.
Correct.
Okay. That sounds good to me.
I think it sounds good. I have two questions. We started the year with a list of items that we were chomping at the bit to work on for an empty session. And so I don't know if that would be an alternate opportunity for that list. I recognize that the community probably sees nothing bigger than this project, but codes have to get updated as well through the process. My second question is, this is the second, 400-page, am I exaggerating? How many pages is it? Did I get it wrong?
I don't know, but they're both as thick.
Oh, they do the exhibit numbering, so you can never find out how many pages it really is.
Mystery pages long.
Mystery pages long. We'll just say 400, right? This is the second version that's 400 pages long. What version is the Planning Commission going to actually be deliberating on? And I ask that with the real intent of understanding when diving into this isn't a waste of our time. Because I don't know that I have more than 2 or 3 readings of 400 pages. Just so if the draft version is now completely extinct and we don't have a red line that tells us what changed, I guess I'm asking a lot of questions. So let me back up and ask the first question: which version of the EIR are we going to deliberate on?
So you would be deliberating upon the final EIR, and which includes the response to comments. So this is the draft EIR, which we are soliciting public comment. It also will, the final EIR will incorporate the edits from the State Housing and Community Development Department. And we talked about this before. We could provide red line edits of the sheets specific to the comments by HCD, so that can identify what the differences are between the document that you have now and the one that you will be deliberating upon in the final.
And for clarification, for those that are watching, the commissioner is talking about the general plan EIR, not the Meadows EIR, for those who are watching.
The Meadows was the one we got last time. That was
Right, the EIR, correct. The subsequent EIR before you now deals with the general plan, not with the Meadows project. So I just wanted to clarify that for those.
The housing
Component of the
element.
general plan.
I'm
right?
sorry, the
Yeah.
housing element.
Okay. Yeah, I think I really think that's a really good question, and I think we just fundamentally have to have a red line, because this is really voluminous, and I don't want to read through it twice and also sort of guess which the changes were. And so if we can have those changes shown, that's going to make everybody's life easier, and not just us, but everyone in town who wants to read through it.
And yeah, so I did conflate a couple of different things there. That's a great point. So the document that we have in front of us is the general plan update. We've also had the Meadows specific plan and EIR, and that's about the same size. And so I just want to make sure that we'll be able to pick the right one to focus on, and then if something changes, be able to easily point that out. And just for clarity, because I did conflate the two, the educational, or what did you call them? What sessions? Study sessions. The study sessions would be on the Meadows project?
Yes.
Okay.
And that, if we have a study session and people comment, is that gonna go in the public record for the project? Or, I mean,
So-
we're also getting emails periodically that Jen forwards to us, thank you. But I just wanna make sure, it seems like we're getting stuff from all different angles. And also, this is one where, you know, you talk to people in town about. And so for like the two projects we had today, you know, we declare, oh, I went to the sites, I didn't talk to anybody, or, you know, I talked to the applicant. There's not a whole bunch of stuff, but I wanna make sure we really mind our P's and Q's about how we acknowledge what input we've got, because we're getting it over a long length of time and we're getting it from a lot of different directions. So any guidance or help you could offer to us on that point, I think would be really appreciated.
So let me make a distinction. If there are comments presented about the draft EIR, we're going to ask those individuals to submit those comments in writing. So they're not going to be, we're not going to transcribe those comments. We're going to ask them to submit it in writing so we can address it in the final EIR. However, every single meeting that we have that addresses the Meadows project will be part of the administrative record. So to the extent you receive emails related to the monastery, to the Meadows project, that'll be part of the administrative record. Every meeting where this is an agenda item will be part of the administrative record. And I think your third question was when you receive input from the public. The only recommendation I have there is, of course, you're absolutely able to talk to members of the public. You're appointed officials, and they have a right to speak with you. What I would encourage all of you, though, is to make sure that you remain neutral. You're able to receive the information, but under no circumstances should you take a position on any of the issues before the hearings come before you and before you've had an opportunity to hear from all parties and all sides. So I encourage you to hear from anyone who's reached out to you, but really it should be a one-way conversation where they're speaking to you and you're receiving information, and you'll let them know that that'll be part of your consideration. Another note, when it comes time for ex-parte disclosures, you'll need to make those ex-parte disclosures before the public hearing. And I understand that can be burdensome. So to the extent let me clarify. To the extent you've learned something that isn't going to be in your staff report packet, that's an ex-parte disclosure that you'll need to make. Because if you're going to make a determination ultimately on the project on information that's outside the staff packet, outside the final ER, outside the draft specific plan, outside of whatever staff report staff prepares, that'll be information that we'll need to know during the ex-parte disclosure portion of that meeting. Did I answer the question, Commissioner?
Yeah, I think so. I want to make sure that, you know, first I appreciate that you say out in the public that we're not supposed to take a position, because I want everyone to know we're not being rude. We can't do that now, and we need to hear everything first. And so, I mean, I've talked to a lot of people, and it's talking means ears at this point for us. But I want them to know we can't say, well, this is bad, or this is good, or this is how the vote's going to go, or anything like that. And we just have to listen and take that in. Is it possible in any way that we could have either individual city email addresses or just a planning commission email address? Because people email us stuff from random stuff, and then also when it's our personal email, they might include like personal information and stuff, and it would be great if people understood, just like the city council has email addresses, there's a planning commission email address and then that's in the record, and we don't have to worry about, you know, disclosing it because it's already there. It just would make it a lot simpler.
That was actually going to be the next thing I asked for, because I don't want to inadvertently delete something and then later have it be something that was needed. So if we had email addresses and it was clear to the public that they should just refer all public matters to those email addresses, I think that would save us all. That's a level of protection that we should be afforded.
Right. Yeah, we certainly can do that for you.
If I may, as of right now, what we're doing is having them email anything to public comment at cityofsierramadre.com, and then it's forwarded on to you by me. I have had people ask for your email addresses, and I've declined based on the fact that they are private, but have given them that direction that they are welcome to email me through the public comment, and then I would pass it along. Or the city clerk at cityofsierramadre.com with same.
Yeah,
same procedure.
people have found me outside already
Sure.
without my email address. So I think that having people will take the easiest path they can.
And we're receiving a number of Public Records Act requests. We haven't received any Public Records Act requests yet that request documents from the Planning Commission. But if we do, that could be a problem because you'll have to search your private email addresses for those records. And to the extent you fail to disclose something, there could be consequences. So I would recommend that if you do receive any emails from the public regarding this project, that you forward it to either Deputy City Clerk Peterson or City Clerk Aguilar, so at least they have a record of it, so we don't have to ask you to search your email addresses.
Excuse me, you're talking about people that contact us privately that we know, okay, not something we got from Jen on the general that we just
Correct.
have commented back, because once we send it back to you, it's gonna go into the system, correct, Jen? Okay,
Right. If it's been forwarded by Jen, then we have a record of it.
right.
But if you're blind copied on it, make sure that there's a staff member also in the CC line or in the 2 line. If there isn't, we should also receive a copy.
Mm-hmm. See, this is the one place where it'd be good to have the city planning commission email address, because then you could just respond and say, look, I'm forwarding this to the city. Please send all stuff that has to do with this project and any other project that comes before the planning commission for that matter to this email address and not my home one. And if you want to talk about setting up a barbecue on Saturday, use this one and not the city one.
Okay, very good. So, go ahead, Peggy.
I'm just a little confused about communicating with the public. So if we are talking to somebody, which is listening, getting in information, how much of that do we have to report when we come to the meeting? Do we have to have a notepad with us that this person talked to us on this day, that person talked to us on this day? And I don't really know what is fact and what is conjecture sometimes, to be perfectly honest here.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I'm a little bit lost.
Yeah. I think for your sake going forward, it would probably be best if you had some kind of record of the conversation you've had and more or less what it's about. Because whatever decision you make ultimately has to be based on the evidence in the administrative record. And if you base your decision on information that's not in the administrative record, that decision might be overturned in court. So we want to make sure that whatever decision you make, we have it in writing in some form to include in the administrative record. Now, that's where the disclosure comes in. If in reviewing the staff packet, you feel like something is missing that you've heard, you want to disclose that. And you want to say, I had a conversation with so-and-so, or maybe you don't even need to give the name, but I had a conversation, and during that conversation, I learned this. So now it's you've addressed it at the meeting, now it's part of the record, and we can have that conversation, and if you decide to make your decision based on what you've heard, that's completely fine, but it just needs to be part of the record.
Okay.
But if we have conversations with people and, we've heard a lot of public comment already, and it's sort of just regurgitating the same public comment because, I think a lot of people think repetitiveness will drown it into your brain, but you've heard it once publicly. We don't have to say, I heard from Fred who said this. He said the same thing in the meeting. This is in writing here. I got it too. Right. It's just if it's something different or new or.
Right. It's not the person so much as the issue. We just need the issue addressed. So we don't want commissioners or city council members making decisions based on reasons that no one knows about. We just want all those reasons to be on record.
So if the public just offers an opinion, I really know something there.
Mhm.
We don't have to tell you that we had a conversation where somebody shared that with us because that's not factual or something we're basing a decision off of.
Correct.
It's only if somebody says there's buried ink and treasure under there, and so you can't build.
Right.
That would be something that, if it were factual, we would have to consider. And that would be something that would be an ex parte conversation that we should report.
Right. To the extent it's going to factor into the decision-making process, we need to include it in the record.
Thanks, that was a really good example, because that's how I feel about some of the things that are being said sometimes.
And let me also add that you will continue to receive
Street, so.
you will continue to receive emails, I'm sure. To the extent you have questions about any of those emails, don't hesitate to contact staff. We're happy to talk to the commissioners, and we're available 24/7.
Okay. Do we have a decision about, you want to know about September 2nd, if you want us to have an open
Study session.
hosting session? How does everybody feel about that? Since we're not going to have anything else, I see why not. Might as well make good use of the time. And then I guess the question is also then by who? Do you want to pick a topic and have the city do it, or consultants? My own, I mean, you guys can chime in, but hiring consultants sounds good because it maybe looks more objective to the public. Sometimes they think the fox is in this chicken coop, but I don't want to, the information seems pretty straightforward to me, so I'm not sure we need to hire separate consultants for this kind of thing. But
Yeah, we wouldn't be hiring a consultant to conduct this or to provide the information. This would be provided by the technical experts who prepared the draft EIR.
I see, okay.
And part of the issue we're trying to address is this. When we brought the applicant to first present the applicant's project, the intention of that was to inform the community of what the applicant wanted to do. Individuals in the community were upset because they felt we were giving the applicant a platform to basically promote the project, which wasn't the city's intention. So now we're thinking maybe the best way to go about it is to have city staff members instead of the applicant's experts talk about some of these issues that have been brought up, like water, like fire. Now, but to the extent that the Planning Commission wanted to hear directly from those experts who drafted the EIR about some of those issues, that would be for the Planning Commission to determine. But city staff is recommending that we use city staff members in order to maintain that neutrality that a lot of the residents are concerned about.
Okay.
Maybe a hybrid model would be to first hear from multiple city staff so that we can then figure out where we want to drill in with an expert. But I wouldn't plan on just one. I can't imagine water presentation and our questions and public comment taking an entire session. I would definitely aim towards having a couple of people here, and if it has to carry over to the next session, then we can make that determination. But we should take advantage of the time that we have and try to get as many of these doled through as we can, and then determine if there's any that we really feel we need the experts who prepared the report to come back. That would be my recommendation.
Yeah, I think it's hard to figure out whether we need the experts until we've sort of dove into it. And so to me, I agree. The first pass would be staff, and then we might say, okay, here's these 3 issues that we feel like we need to explore more, or, no, that's fine, we got it all. I also think if we have more of these planning sessions, that'll give more opportunity for the public to speak, and maybe we can relax the time limit a little bit. I think that the big problem that we as a city have had, in large measure because of COVID, is there's this lack of appearance of transparency. And I, for one, hated the way people commented at our meetings on Zoom. It was like really hard. And so having actual meetings where people can come and speak, I think is going to be really helpful, so that people feel like they have an opportunity to put all their stuff out. So I think to the extent we can have these sessions, I think it's a really good idea, rather than just having, one public hearing where you get cut off on your time and people are going to feel like they're not really going to be able to participate as much as they want. And this will help that a lot, I think.
If we notice, I'm sorry, go ahead. If we notice the meeting to be in person and then the attendance requirements change, what happens then?
I mean, if too many people show up,
Then we go
No, I
back
mean,
to-
that it's very possible that,
nobody shows up.
no, that they change the rules and say that we can't meet in person here.
Oh,
And we've already noticed the meeting. That's my question.
well,
Then we would attempt to notify people again, even using social media and the paper, and that the meeting will be held via Zoom.
Deputy City Attorney might be able to speak to this, but I understand that there are several groups that are asking the governor to extend the emergency executive order that affects the Brown Act till the end of, or till at least the beginning of 2022.
It currently expires in September, so all these virtual meeting rules that we have are good until September 30th. If the governor doesn't extend it past September 30th, we won't have a choice we will have to conduct it either in person or not have meetings.
Okay, so we're good through this study session for sure.
Yeah, it's up to the city council ultimately, unless the county requires us not to meet in person. Yeah.
Okay, so, besides water and, traffic, zoning seems to be a hot topic of public interest, so.
The thing about the zoning is, it's not so much a technical issue. It's a policy issue. And I want to stay away from having policy discussions at the Planning Commission. I want to save the policy discussions for the actual public hearing. It's the technical issues that I think will be best parsed through by this body, because there are a lot of details that I think folks are missing. And instead of having a broader issue on what is right, what is wrong for that specific parcel, I think it's better to have this be like a fact-finding mission. Is the goal we had in mind, but of course it's for the Planning Commission to determine how to run the meeting.
But the zoning, there are some facts there that, implications of the different zones and things like that. And I'm not sure the public's getting all the implications of that, one way or another.
So the difference in this case, I hear some members of the public will say, why did we change the zoning standards? And will consider a specific plan which deviates slightly from the R1 zone. That's the issue. So the applicant has submitted a specific plan along with the draft EIR, and that's what we're responding to.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's human nature is to want to discuss these things. And I think we as commissioners, and I'm saying this more to remind myself than anybody else, need to be careful that we can't discuss this stuff except when it's the time for us to discuss it. And so I'm a little concerned about having study sessions that go off of topics that are very factual, because I want us to ask questions, not have discussions shaped in questions, right? And so I'm concerned about the zoning issue, having that as a study session, because it's like you said, there are a lot of policy questions and issues.
Okay.
Not as much as like, how is this water savings plan gonna actually work? And how are the traffic numbers, generation numbers calculated? I mean, those are like specific questions that we're not saying, well, I think we should do bit or that. And so I think we as a commission need to be very mindful of that we're in a fact-finding mode and not a deliberating mode.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do
A clearer understanding for me.
do you have a finite list of topics you think you would, no? Okay. Because, I mean, I don't know if this is under my discretion or not as chairman, but I would like to limit the sessions to maybe just one or two simple things. And then, I don't care if it even takes a half hour. I would just I'd rather see how it goes, because if we bite off more than we can chew, it's gonna get exhausting, and we don't really know exactly how it's gonna go, and as well, stay away from controversial issues that open up why questions, you know, or that, and so I agree with the concept, I think, but if we can maybe try and come up with a finite list of the study session so that the public knows exactly what we're gonna be talking about, and that when we get through it, that they'll feel hopefully that they got informed enough or got enough question and answer. So when it comes down to the deliberation time you're talking about, that we don't get a lot of these speculative type emails that we're getting right now. And I think that would maybe help a lot of that in the process. So I don't know if that's specifically my purview as chair to limit that, but I mean, I'm open to your guys' suggestion, but I hope that, I'd like to keep it kind of simple and limited, and maybe start with something like simple, you know, like water, because I remember we got a resources bulletin, and that's something that the public's already aware of, and then if we could make it specific to this project, because, you know, sort of bite off one thing, so we push that out of the way, and then get to and maybe as we drill down, we can find out what the nitty-gritty issues are that we still haven't addressed. And I'm not sure how to create that list, but I mean, because we talked about it, but.
Director Gonzalez, how many meetings do you think there will be before?
We have 3 meetings prior to the October 4th end of the public 60-day period, comment period. We can certainly have additional, because the applicant is still preparing response to comments. But officially, we have 3 meetings prior to end of the public comment period.
Okay.
How many projects do we have that could come before us during that
So
time?
certainly we could. We don't have any projects for our meeting on September, our first meeting in September, which we were planning on canceling. We can certainly schedule water for that discussion, maybe hearing from the fire marshal regarding the high fire hazard severity zone and the impacts a project would have on the addressing fire issues. And then the other topic, of course, would be transportation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I think that the idea of a list is really helpful too, because, you know, if we have the first one on water, we don't want people to come and talk about traffic, because it's just gonna waste everyone's time. And if people know we're gonna have one on traffic, you know, we could save comments for that then, and that will make the process a lot more efficient and allow everyone to get their chance to speak on the topics that they wanna speak on.
Okay.
I like that idea, separating them to separate meetings and keeping it contained, one meeting to the next.
Yeah. So-
And then if we do have projects, I know we're also want to begin our further discussions at reviewing the accessory dwelling unit ordinance.
Mm.
We can try to work that in as well.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a directive from council, so we do need to make sure that we get that back to them.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So with 3 limited meetings, maybe we can get a short list of some things, and we can schedule the study sessions, and maybe we can also just decide, depending on what projects we have, to include them as part of the you know, we'll do a project and then do a study session on one subject or something like that, depend on how many we come up with.
Scheduled at the end of the meeting so that they get to listen to the rest of the things we do as well.
Yeah, we can agendize that, sure.
I really would like to encourage at least 2 topics per night, though. I think that we're gonna really, I'm fine if we don't have more than that. We only have so many sessions and we never have enough time. I really feel like at least 2. But I totally agree with the idea that if we calendarize so that people know what the next ones are that are up, so that they don't stray from the topic.
Yep.
Okay.
But I mean, if you think it's just one, I'm open to it. I feel like one study session might be a little light for the number of study sessions that are likely out there. Do you have
I'm not sure on that point. What I don't want is a free-for-all.
Yeah.
And so because I think it's gonna get so muddled, it's not even gonna be helpful. And if we really drill down on water, on the water session, I think we're gonna get some useful information. And then we can go traffic and the other issues, and if we have 3 meetings and there's sort of 6 big topics and it's 2-2, that's fine with me. If there's 3 big ones we wanna hit, I really haven't dug in enough to make that determination. But I just wanna make sure that we have a topic and we stick on it. And I think that's really the most productive way.
And may I suggest perhaps the best way to go is to have some kind of time limit. So if the objective is to have 2, maybe we have 2 scheduled, but if the first one's about water and it goes over an hour, then we can go to the other business on the agenda.
Okay.
If you'd like, it's just a suggestion.
Yeah, no, I think
Manage it.
I'd rather do that, because I don't want this to spin out of control. We'll get exhausted with a study session, then not have enough energy for the other things, or get distracted, and then we'll be pushing to do other parts of the business when we're doing this voluntarily. I mean, we don't have to do this at all. So that's perfectly fine by me.
So what if you have 100 people show up and they all want to talk on water and it goes over, you can't, they can't speak? I mean,
You can always manage the public comment period. So if it's 3 minutes, you can lower it to 2.
so to do the math ahead of time?
Yeah, just determine based on the number of people. There are always ways to manage it, and I'm happy to talk to Chair Pevsner about ways to manage public comment to make it more efficient.
Okay.
But I don't think we're gonna get 100 people on each one. I think we might get more people on the first one who sort of wanna come and see the spectacle and see how it works. But I think if we can keep people on task on that topic, you know, I think we're gonna get 20-ish on each one. And I would much rather, you know, keep on topic, but allow people a little latitude on how long to speak than sort of meander all over and have people say 2 minutes, because that 2 minutes isn't gonna be as useful to me as somebody who's speaking, you know, 5 minutes on the water issue, and then on another night, 5 minutes on the transportation issue. And people know that they always can do written comments too, if they feel like they haven't got a chance to speak up. And as council said, for the EIR, written comments are paramount. So people need to understand that.
Well, we sort of have an open book on September 2nd, so,
And maybe after staff has decided how many of these big topics in total to handle, it'll kind of backfill into what the calendar should look like. Because I don't think any of us have a great idea of what those topics should be. Or at least I don't. I won't speak for my other commissioners.
yeah, and offense since Vince with the department, which one do you think will take more time? Like if you put one long one with a short one, or just one long one and that's it, that's fine too.
And because we're not deliberating on these, it will only be us, the planning commission can ask questions of the expert, but the public will only be giving comment. We won't be able to answer that.
This is up to the planning commission, but I recommend that it not be back and forth with members of the public, because it might be unruly.
Sure.
Well, even though it's a study session, it's still a public hearing, right? It's not like our discussion meetings that we have when we're talking about like revising code, and those are more open and fluid.
It's not a public hearing. I wouldn't use that term, because public hearings are generally noticed, and there's a specific notice procedure for public hearings.
Okay.
I think this is just, the idea would be just have it as a regular agenda item for discussion, and as a discussion item, it would be open for public comment, and of course members of the public can ask questions and provide comment, but the questions I think would be coming from the planning commission to staff to be addressed.
Right, okay. Well, we can guide that. Okay, very good. Okay. You have enough guidance with that?
So
Okay.
the
Go ahead,
public would ask questions. We would synthesize their questions and ask staff to do something about it. That might actually help the feeling of being heard and processed and.
Or also that the fact that we're hearing it, because have to
Right.
acknowledge it.
Yeah, and I'm not proposing that everybody would have questions. I think that people will invariably ask questions as part of public comment. And to the extent that it turns out that we heard it different, we can ask for clarification on that. Right? Do I have that right?
Okay. All right, very good.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So then, actually, I got a procedural question. Depending on what we come up with, I guess I'm adjourning to our next meeting or possibly September 2nd?
Meeting
Okay.
September 2nd.
Very good. I will adjourn the meeting to September 2nd.